When the Hamilton Tiger Cats kicked off the 1962 season, little did they or anyone else know that they would be involved in a historic first for the Canadian Football League and something that hasn't happened again. My name's Rick Zamprin, and welcome to episode 11 of the Fifth Quarter Show Seasons, a weekly look at some of Hamilton's most important and celebrated campaigns on the football field. If you missed any of the previous episodes, please consider subscribing to this channel. And as many of you already know, CFL free agency is going to open on Tuesday, February the 11th, and the Fifth Quarter Show is going to be live that night to recap the biggest moves of the day and how it's going to impact the Tiger Cats and all the other teams around the league. More details to come on this channel and on my social feeds, but back to Seasons. And the year I'm going to be squarely focused on today is 1962. 1962 was a season to remember for the Ticats and the entire CFL. The league was celebrating its 5th anniversary, and it was also the year that the Canadian Football Hall of Fame was established, and it was set up in Hamilton. Away from football, the Hamilton Red Wings beat the Edmonton Oil Kings to win the city's first Memorial Cup. And voters elected lawyer and alderman John Munro as a Liberal MP in the riding of Hamilton East, a seat that he occupied for 22 years. As for the Ticats, their front office was rock solid. Jake Gadar was firmly entrenched as the team's president and general manager, a post the two-time Grey Cup winner landed in 1954. Jim Trimble was entering his 8th season as head coach in Hamilton. Assistant Ralph Sazio was celebrating his 12th year on the sideline, and fellow assistant Joe Restick had just arrived from Colgate University in the United States. And the roster was stacked with talent as well, from top to bottom. Quarterbacks Bernie Filoni, Frank Cosentino, and rookie Joe Zuger, halfbacks Garney Henley and Ralph Goldston, receivers Tommy Grant and Paul Decker, and linemen such as John Barrow, Bronco Nagurski, Pete Newman, Vince Scott, and Ellison Kelly. Hamilton won their first 3 games in 1962, beating Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal before enjoying their first of 2 bye weeks in Week 4. Following Hamilton's 25-25 tie against Montreal, defensive stalwart Angelo Mosca left the Alouettes and rejoined the Tiger Cats. And it was just in time for Hamilton's rematch against the defending Grey Cup champion Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Winnipeg had beaten the Cats in the 1961 Grey Cup, the first CFL championship game to be decided in overtime. When the Ticats and Bombers met on September 10th, 1962, no one knew the history that would unfold 2 months later. 21,600 spectators at Civic Stadium watched as Winnipeg rallied from a 10-4 deficit and beat Hamilton 16-10, handing the Cats their first loss of the 62 season. Hamilton won their next 2 games to improve to 5-1-1, but slipped up in the following 3 games against Calgary, Ottawa, and Toronto after Filoni suffered a season-ending injury. Entering their final bye week of that year at 5-4-1, the coaching staff and players were committed to playing much better in the final few weeks of the regular season. And boy, did they ever. Trimble decided to give Zuger his first start at quarterback, and the rookie had a game for the ages. Zuger threw for a team record 572 yards and a CFL record 8 touchdowns as Hamilton whipped Saskatchewan 67-21. That victory propelled the Ticats to wins over the Argos, Alouettes, and Rough Riders to finish the season on a 4-game winning streak, and their 9-4-1 record was tops in the East. Hamilton went on to sweep Montreal in the 2-game East final, winning 28-17 and 30-21. While out west, the Blue Bombers beat Calgary 2-1 in their best-of-3 Western final. It was Winnipeg's 5th straight trip to the Grey Cup and Hamilton's 4th appearance in the title game since the CFL officially formed in 1958. The 1962 Grey Cup, the 50th edition of the championship game, was the first to be broadcast on U.S. network television when ABC's Wide World of Sports carried the game on tape delay. Although American viewers would never see how the game ended. More than 32,000 fans packed into Exhibition Stadium on Toronto's waterfront for the big game on Saturday, December 1st, 1962. Henley opened the scoring in the first quarter with a dazzling 73-yard touchdown run before Winnipeg answered back with 2 TDs in the second quarter. With dense fog starting to settle into the stadium, Hamilton took the lead 19-14 when Bobby Kuntz and Henley scored rushing touchdowns. But the Bombers managed to enter halftime with a 21-19 lead after running back Leo Lewis scored his second touchdown of the game. When the two teams emerged from their locker rooms for the start of the second half, the fog was even thicker. Zuger hit Dave Vitti for a 36-yard TD to give Hamilton a 26-21 advantage. But Winnipeg answered back 2.5 minutes later with a major of their own. And Hamilton's Don Sutherland missed a 44-yard field goal that was scored to Rouge. Sutherland had also missed 2 converts earlier in the game that would prove ever so costly. It was 28-27 for the Bombers entering the fourth quarter, and the fog was getting worse. Punted balls could not be seen until they bounced off the ground. Receivers lost track of passes in the thick fog that had rolled in off Lake Ontario, and it made it impossible for fans to see anything. After a 20-minute delay, and with 9:29 left to play in the game was suspended, and Commissioner Sidney Halter declared it would be concluded the following day. It was the first and only time that the Grey Cup would be decided over 2 days. Despite 55 points scored the day before, none were put on the board on Sunday, and the Blue Bombers defeated Hamilton in the Grey Cup for the 4th time in 5 years. Who knew that Winnipeg's dynasty, however, would come to an abrupt end after 1962? They'd suffer through a championship drought that would last more than 2 decades. As for the Tiger Cats, they were about to begin an impressive run of their own. We'll learn more about that on the next episode of the Fifth Quarter Show Seasons next Tuesday. Another Ticats icon is going to be profiled when the latest edition of Legends drops on Thursday. And stay tuned for more details on the Fifth Quarter Show Free Agency Edition on February 11th. Until next time, Oskee Wee Wee.